Hello, I'm Sebastian. Welcome to 9 Trees podcast. Today, I will summarize and review the book. The Truth About the Titanic by Archibald Gracie is one of the most cited first-person accounts of the RMS Titanic disaster, written by a survivor who experienced the sinking firsthand. Gracie, a first-class passenger, focuses less on sensational storytelling and more on assembling a careful record of what he saw, heard, and later verified through conversations with other survivors. The book stands at the intersection of memoir and investigative reconstruction, capturing the confusion of the final hours and the human choices made under extreme pressure. Readers encounter details about shipboard life, the gradual realization that the ship was doomed, and the chaotic transition from routine travel to an unprecedented maritime emergency. Because it is rooted in an eyewitness perspective shaped by early 20th century social norms, the narrative also reveals how class, duty, and etiquette influenced behavior as lifeboats were launched. Gracie aims to preserve testimony, correct rumors, and document acts of courage and failure with a deliberate, report-like seriousness. I will give you key takeaways from this book. Firstly, life on board before the crisis. A major value of Gracie's account is the window it provides into the Titanic as a functioning, luxurious passenger liner before anything went wrong. He describes the rhythms of the voyage, the social environment among first-class travelers, and the sense of confidence that surrounded a modern ship on a routine crossing. This calm backdrop matters because it explains why early warnings did not immediately translate into panic. The book highlights how passengers interpreted the ship through the lens of comfort and perceived safety, and how crew professionalism helped sustain that impression. By focusing on ordinary interactions, meals, conversations, and the general atmosphere, Gracie makes the later shock of the collision more comprehensible. Readers also gain insight into the era's social structure, including the formalities of dress and conduct and the invisible boundaries that separated passenger groups. These details are not merely decorative. They set up the moral and logistical questions that arise later, such as who received information first, how quickly orders traveled, and how social expectations shaped whether people hesitated or complied. The pre-disaster portrait becomes an essential baseline for understanding the tragedy's human dynamics. Secondly, the collision and the slow recognition of danger. Gracie pays close attention to the moment the ship struck the iceberg and, just as importantly, to the period afterward when many people struggled to interpret what had happened. Rather than presenting an instant shift from normalcy to catastrophe, the narrative emphasizes uncertainty, mixed signals, and the difficulty of grasping the severity of the damage. This topic explores how information moved through the ship, how passengers evaluated risk based on limited evidence, and why some delayed taking action. Gracie's perspective shows how a large vessel can absorb a serious blow without dramatic immediate effects, creating a false sense of security. The book also sheds light on how authority worked on board, officers issuing instructions, stewards guiding passengers, and the social tendency to avoid alarming others without confirmation. This gradual realization becomes one of the most haunting aspects of the Titanic story because it reveals that time, while available, was not always used effectively. By reconstructing what people believed at different moments, Gracie contributes to a clearer understanding of how disasters unfold in stages and how human perception can lag behind reality. Thirdly, lifeboats, procedure, and the impact of class and gender norms. One of the central concerns in The Truth About the Titanic is the lifeboat operation, not only as a technical and organizational challenge, but as a social test. Gracie examines how lifeboats were filled, how orders were interpreted, and how the principle of women and children first played out in practice. The book conveys that procedure was uneven, influenced by location on the ship, the assertiveness of individuals, and the varying approaches of different officers. Gracie's account also reflects the early 20th century code of conduct among many men in first class, including ideas about duty and restraint, while also acknowledging moments of confusion and conflicting behavior. The narrative invites readers to consider how class boundaries and access points affected who reached the boat deck quickly, who received guidance, and who remained uncertain about what to do. Without turning the story into a simple morality tale, Gracie emphasizes the importance of leadership, clear communication, and disciplined execution in an emergency bectus. This topic helps explain why some boats launched underfilled and why survival often depended on timing and proximity as much as courage. Fourthly, the final minutes and survival on the overturned collapsible. Gracie is known for his description of the last stage of the sinking and his own survival after entering the freezing Atlantic. He recounts the chaos as the ship's angle increased, the rush of people, and the abrupt transition from shipboard space to open water. This part of the narrative highlights the physical reality of maritime disaster, cold shock, exhaustion, and the difficulty of staying afloat amid debris and waves. Gracie's survival involved reaching an overturned collapsible lifeboat, where men struggled to balance, avoid capsizing, and endure the night. The episode becomes a study in group survival under extreme conditions, where cooperation and self-control could mean the difference between life and death. It also illustrates the psychological toll of witnessing others in the water and the limits of what survivors could do without risking everyone. Gracie's emphasis on bodily strain, coordination, and the relentless cold offers readers a grounded understanding that complements broader historical summaries. This topic captures the disaster at its most immediate, shifting from questions of policy and procedure to the raw challenge of staying alive until rescue. Lastly, aftermath, testimony, and the fight against rumor, beyond recounting events, Gracie's book functions as an attempt to preserve reliable testimony and correct misinformation that spread rapidly after the sinking. He draws on his own memory while also referencing conversations and gathered accounts from other survivors, aiming to reconcile contradictions and highlight what could be responsibly stated. This topic is about how societies process catastrophe through newspapers, public debate, and official inquiries, often before facts are settled. Gracie's approach underscores the value and limitations of eyewitness evidence, including the ways trauma, darkness, and confusion can distort recollection. At the same time, his work demonstrates an early effort to apply a kind of method to disaster reporting, separating what was observed from what was assumed. The book encourages readers to think critically about narratives that become popular because they are dramatic rather than accurate. It also reflects on accountability and lessons learned, such as preparedness, training, and capacity planning, themes that influenced later maritime standards. By framing his account as a corrective record, Gracie adds a meta layer to the Titanic story, not only what happened, but how we decide what happened and why that decision matters. In conclusion, this book is best suited for readers who want a first-hand, detail-oriented view of the Titanic disaster, rather than a modern retelling shaped by later myths. It will appeal to history enthusiasts, maritime and safety professionals, students studying how crises unfold, and anyone interested in human behavior under pressure. The benefit to a reader's life comes from its practical lessons, how unclear communication slows response, how social norms can either support order or create hesitation, and how small decisions made early can determine outcomes later. Gracie's account also strengthens critical thinking by showing why eyewitness testimony must be weighed carefully yet treated with respect, especially when rumors compete with evidence. Compared with many Titanic books that focus on broad narrative sweep or cinematic drama, this one is worth buying because it preserves an early survivor perspective that aims for documentation and correction. It complements later scholarship rather than replacing it, giving readers a primary source-style foundation that deepens understanding of subsequent analyses. If you want to grasp not only the tragedy itself, but the lived experience of its unfolding and the challenge of recording truth afterward, this book offers enduring value. If you would like to support Archibald Gracie, you can buy the book through the Amazon link I've provided in the podcast description. After reading the book, please let me know what you think and share your thoughts. See you around.